So there was one more thing I wanted to say on the incarnation grid. Oh, what was going on in the rest of the solar system was just as key because it's all part of the galactic ascension machine.
Okay.
So we just got the snapshot of Earth. So because that for a while Saturn was trying to compete with Earth and what it was producing better beings, because there was basically a solar system wide production. It wasn't just here on Earth that they were producing skin suits. That was going on inside the hollowness of asteroids. It was a full court press to breed everything in the solar system.
Yeah, yeah. And everything was functioning in that way from a experiential level for the soul. It didn't have to totally be Earth individually. It was all planets were functioning as that.
Yep. So Neptune represents at the same era of 753 or 780 to 200 represents a time where
we're talking 750 AD as recent as that on the
750 to around 200 AD.
Oh wow.
Slice of time, yeah. So in that perspective in Neptune, that's where a lot of beings who had great potential, even greater than just putting them into the market right away, the super geniuses you wanted to keep in your own collective, they were sent to Neptune to learn advanced multidimensional living. And that was like the University of Advanced Multidimensionality from our solar system. And then they could graduate free-roaming galactic citizens that did a variety of things.
So what sort of dimensionality was Neptune operating then?
It had third density, fourth, fifth, and sixth density surface areas in different forms of bubbles of reality. And basically you would incarnate in the highest density or the lowest density and make a sacred pilgrimage in one lifetime from highest to lowest, lowest to highest. And once you did that, you got the whole multidimensional picture of how to live, how to make multiple versions of yourself, how not to be in competition with yourself, because the whole planet was set up that way.
So it's like dealing with multiple shards of yourself incarnated in separate beings.
Yes.
And operating with them. Like, does Neptune have the same laws, like your memory's wiped on there?
So I Am Presence technology still works the same way there, but it's how it comes to its conforming or accepting or whatever language you want to give it as its multiple versions of itself. Okay, some are given full sovereignty and some are not given full sovereignty. Example, when you're doing, grid work and weather work, as soon as you're done, there's another part of you that's still doing the work days and weeks and months ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You need to know that.
Yeah, say, for me, like when I say, for example, when I go to healing, it's like the moment I commit to it, the healing's already done. It's just follow through. So it's that sort of thing. It's like, yeah.
So on Neptune, let's say you're at the third density and you reach your, teenage year rites of passage, you would make a version of yourself that would go all the way to the highest density at a very young age. And let's say, you're between third and fourth density and all of a sudden your sixth density self comes back to you. You learn how to meet it, have first contact with it, how to know its truth, how to know what could impact you and alter your different sets of potentials.
Yes.
Through multidimensional living and understanding. Yeah.
Well, how about the Earth incarnation grid sort of got a grid on it? Is that sort of a common theme that's on most of the planets in the solar system? Like, say we're talking Neptune here. Is there a corruption relative to the incarnation process there, or is it different? how it's sort of like, say we come through a divine feminine sort of birth canal sort of thing. Is that a similar pattern that happens on Neptune?
That exists there too. But part of the agreements from the celestial source when it founded itself as a planet, it would have these zones purposely designed for beings to go from third density to sixth density in 1 or 2 lifetimes. Just like, you cross the Bering Strait, the cavemen crossed the Bering Strait, came down into Canada kind of concept. And there could be other high societies around it who must not interfere with it or fully support it. And as long as they don't interfere or fully support it, whole other societies can exist all around it in different structure formats, in seen and unseen realities. So it's similar. And how level is the corruption? Earth is where you get the PhD in the School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
Let's call Neptune where doctors go when they have to do their rotations and rounds, while they're still students and get abused.
It's like,
Learning,
the grad school sort of thing.
Yeah.
I know, it's like year 3 of university where you go out into the field. Yeah.
A lot of them end up, literally just getting abused by the doctors and the staff. They don't get paid.
And they get all the shitty jobs, like, yeah. Like, all I was sort of expressing is, like Earth, relative to the incarnation grid being messed with, isn't a unique sort of thing. It's sort of something that can happen.
In this solar system, it is... You got to see Earth as the pinnacle of that technology of a grid.
Yeah, because Earth has got the
solar system. It doesn't exist because you may only have 1 womb chakra on a planet if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Maybe 2.
Yeah.
Okay? So you take that factor away, womb chakra factor away. They're going to be more diversified over larger periods of space, looking for the most refined planets, or start building their own planets, and that, like, literally the structure, and then taking them back in time where celestial beings were on the move, and then lure it in and say, "Hey, you want to be my celestial planet?"
Yeah. So I mean, like, the resources allocation are relative to the value sets on a sort of planet, and so womb chakras are a higher value sort of commodity to sort of dominate. Yeah, I get you. It was just like sort of just to make sure that that's not a unique concept, because we were focusing on Earth and then stepping back a bit.
So it's unique to our solar system, but has been mimicked since it was created. Does that help?
Yeah.
No one can recreate it fully on other worlds because, you'd have to do the whole hairball again.
Yeah.
And no one wants to do that.
It's a unique expression in itself. So.
Yeah.
Interesting. I've never heard you talk about Neptune, mate. So that's a new one.
So, Mars, let me think.
Mars has been in a coma for a while.
Still same time frame, 780 to 200 BC. Mars would have been in what I call the junk wars.
Yes.
So think of Mars as just a massive salvage planet, because there's technology all over the solar system. It's absolutely everywhere.
So a bit like the latest Star Wars movie with all the ships that are all crashed on the surface, and the main female character, she's going through the wreckage of all the old ships. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they would be more like they would go out into the solar system and then crash them on Mars to take them apart, kind of like the India shipyards where they cut the...
Okay, yeah. I was thinking of that as well.
And then, salvage operations, because, again, there's technology all over the solar system, and just outside of the solar system, it could take 1 trillion people 1 million years to take it all out.
Wow.
That's it.
try and fathom that in a...
It's almost like self-regenerating at times because of all the time travel wars, of all the junk that just manifests in reality.
Did you saw Defiance, didn't you?
Yes.
And there's all the junk that's like falling out of sky, and then there's salvage crews that go and get all the technology. Yep. Interesting.
Yeah. So Mars would...
That was like Earth. The humans are here, but it was two sort of species coming to try and take over, and then they fight each other. Yeah, it's...
It was actually a combination of 5 species. That's what made up when they came here to Earth.
Yeah,
in that show.
Yeah, I mean, that sort of galactic sort of complexity was really well done in that.
That right there is soft disclosure in itself, because what I was telling you before about North America and Canada, they came here in a spiritual format or in physical technology, and when they got here, they had to go through a DNA change to stay on the surface of the world, and they were a refugee species.
Yeah, and the other thing is, this, I could find something else that you sort of, well, I actually worked out, but I don't think you've ever said, is that, there's different rules between incarnating and crashing and dying on the planet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally different set of rules.
Yeah, because you've inlaid that in many of your readings in the 2013 sort of Adventure in Realities, because there were some people that you said had different contracts because they crashed here and they didn't go through...
or died.
Yeah, they missed out on a lot of the bad contract crap because they didn't incarnate here originally. They got through the...
Yeah. So, okay, we'll call Mars the salvage planet. And it would make vessels that would go to other solar systems and other galaxies and act as salvage objects, because hunting things of great value in space was, common theme back then. So, let's see. Venus, 750 or 780 to 200, would have gone through its divine feminine, divine masculine war, which would have broken up much of the advanced Venusian philosopher councils. It would have been a mass exodus off the world, and many of them would have gone to Andromeda, Antares, Vega, the Pleiades, as a spiritual exodus because of the great culture that was broken up by this system of domination and control that was trying to make an intense separation of densities on Venus itself. Because the bigger goal of Venus was to basically kick the kids out of the nest, and the only ones that could come back or stay in the nest were the genius healers. It wanted to turn a philosophy organization into a healers organization. And that's why the Venusian philosophers, kind of went down, but Venus now represents the emergency room of the galaxy.
This is like still in that time frame of 788 BC.
Yeah, but even to this day, it is still considered the emergency room of the galaxy.
Yeah, and that's what dimensions is that operating in?
3rd to 7th.
Okay, yeah.
Oh.
I worked out the city in India where they scrap ships is Alan. Elaine? So,
Elaine, yeah.
Yeah, Mars is the Elaine of the galaxy, of the solar system.
So, Saturn, let me describe Saturn now. So, there are large chunks of artificially created stones that are in a variety of pyramidal geometric shapes that can be 5,000 miles in circumference, that are spaced throughout the cardinal points of Saturn. And those represent living spaces for 3rd to 9th density beings. And then the hollow Earth expression, the hollow version of Saturn, everything lives in the compression of gas. And then its astral is everything's living in electromagnetic energy. And anything on the surface or subsurface of Mars can freely travel to any of its moons, multidimensionally incarnate. Now, Saturn at that time, is still being a major dick, creating war people who would ultimately come here. They may only have, 10 or 20 lives on Mars or on Saturn, and then they basically get, oh, you've been volunteered, go to Earth, good luck, bye-bye. Pluto. So Pluto, you gotta really understand what Pluto means. So Pluto is where the psychic telescopes exist throughout time. It's a way to remote view and remote experience anything in time in this universe or any other universes. So those that are incarnate there are always in a hierarchical battle to get access to the celestial technology of the psychic telescopes. So that's their perversion of incarnation. There's far less that live on there. Maybe at most 12 billion people at any time will be living on Pluto. There are times that Pluto has teleported very close to Earth and assisted the mystery schools at, let's just saying, having a deeper understanding of the waves of time. So sometimes there would be an indication, a time wave, that some time travel organization is going to do a mass invasion of Earth, and they would bring Pluto in to help refine that understanding and create a rift blockage system. So like putting a cork in the rift that they were going to come through, and all the ships would just crash into the rift and the cork and die. Or reality-altering weapon, whatever it was. So 750, 780, 200. Pluto was truly the hierarchical process of becoming a galactic mafia guy who understood the big picture. Kind of where you got your mafia don, handkerchief, whatever, you were made man when you graduated. Yeah. So Uranus, let me go. It's a lot harder to describe.
It's interesting because like just me sitting here perceiving this and trying to sort of perceive sort of that era on Earth, and it's interesting because a lot of sort of, say, the ancient Greeks and the Romans, they all had metaphoric meanings for each of the planets. Like they all had a sort of character, right. A character.
Yeah.
So there's you're sort of describing what's going on, and obviously on some level they were perceiving what's going on to give those populace and the astronomers sort of, it was in their culture as people, the solar system where, from they were like nursery rhymes, So it's interesting you're talking all about this in that detail of that time, because there's obviously a lot drama going on.
So I always struggle with Uranus for a variety of reasons, because it runs a series of programs that are very short, only 2,000-3,000 years, and its surface of its reality will break up to tens of thousands of bubbles realities, to a handful of bubble realities, kind of like a grocery store that runs out of shit before the hurricane, on a regular basis. So that's the way I describe Uranus. So it's tens of thousands of off-worlders who have basically kind of made a corporation with investors that all keep Uranus turning over large volumes of stuff.
It's funny. I mentioned to you, I watched all the X-Files last year, all right? Mm-hmm. And there's this funny episode where there's this perceived like bug infestation, and it's like Scully comes into this town and she finds this place, like the supermarket, and all the people are going crazy. It's like a hurricane storm, and they're all panicking, and they're in there. It's funny. It's like a funny episode. So I'm just like picturing Uranus like that sort of hell.
It's the place where you learn to hate bureaucracy. Or the spiritual bureaucracy.
Yeah. All the people are in like this perpetual like fear, and you know, they're fighting over the products in the supermarket, and Scully's just come in and she's like driven like 15 hours, and it's like, I just want to know where I am, you know. Mm-hmm. And she's like, get some control, people, and she gets stampled.
Yeah. I remember that episode. They're after a serial killer in the storm, and finally Mulder comes there late.
Yeah, it's a classic, because it's like it's like fear and like that storm, and you know, the recipe of disaster, and people, you know, they lose themselves.
So did I miss a planet?
Mercury. I don't think you've ever really talked much apart from that Sam Muggsy and Rebecca Jernigan thing.
I did Mercury in the Kevin Smith show because he asked me what was going on there. Let me 750, 780, 200. So you have gateways that come out of the sun. And Mercury is like a data storage unit of extra soul codes. So you could have something that would go direct from one solar system to Mercury. It's like fast tracking your immigration. And there are surface beings of light. Many angelic organizations kind of use it as their version of a sanctuary. There is life there. For wherever there's an angelic sanctuary, there is always life in subsurface caverns. It does have a DNA trade, but it's like putting something at the, like let's just use the version of our solar system as a shopping center. That's the perfect skew, the perfect position. As soon as you walk in, here's the sale.
Yeah.
So that's the archetypical metaphor. And there would only be less than 10 billion beings at a time living on Mercury. You can even call it the duty-free zone.
Okay. There's Jupiter as well, I realized.
Oh, yeah, Jupiter. So Jupiter has a similar concept of what I was telling you before about the tuna, except they live as energy beings in clouds. And after a while, thousands of energy beings become one big, ever-turning cloud. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And there are other predatorial clouds.
Is it difference from going, say, from a physical to a non-physical? Or
yes, you have a physical representation in the cloud itself.
Or is it more like a billion drops forming a cloud sort of thing?
More like a hermit's crab shell. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more like a hermit crab shell. Okay. And after a while, everyone learns how to share a single shell. Okay. Now, there are realities there that have humanoids and relic species there, and you could call that as like a secondary DNA bank that will make sure there is always stock on its surface or subsurface. Okay?
Yeah.
You know, any variety of the 900,000 human skin suits.
Yeah.
Now,
because that's something you've dropped about, like
right.
skin suits. There's actually 900 or so thousand different variants.
So it is much more of a higher engineered by founder beings. So it has properties to it that the extraterrestrial organizations there don't have the same power that they do here. There's an ancient enough species that came shortly after the founder beings that kept their territory protected. And when other extraterrestrials came into that area and began seeding, you know, all throughout the area and competing for what was going on, you know, it could keep its own, but eventually more advanced beings came in and took over, you know, part of the area until they had to share the planet.
Okay.
Wait, 1 second. Okay. Better turn my oven off. So that's that.
How about I ask you an interesting question? Like you've talked about, there's 66 planets in our solar system. Why don't you talk about a planet that hasn't been talked about, just to sort of offer that some depth?
Okay. I was just thinking about that. So let's take yourself to the edge.
So let's not do 66 because it's been.
No, I'll just.
You know what I mean? But let's like offer some validity to what you offer there. You know.
All right. So let's go to the end of the Oort cloud. Okay. And I want you to see the end of the Oort cloud and everything inside the Oort cloud all the way to the center of the sun as the innermost ring of our solar system.
Sure.
So our solar system has another 20 rings beyond the Oort cloud, or 19 rings.
Of a similar nature.
Similar nature. And some have very thin barrier Oort clouds or gas particles in between them that make the separation of what the different lines, the different radiuses mean. So just be out there, you have a variety of gas giants that have been collecting material from the Oort cloud that are converting from gas giant to solid planets. And you have at least 50 moons that make up one kind of real civilization there, even though you can kind of see it as its own. And they live on the moons, and they are constantly trying to geoengineer the gas giant to become a planet faster. So they are relic species from Earth, the talls, the 30 foots, the 20 foots, as well as Sirian alphas when they split. Zetas are there, though they're, how do I put it? They have a tough time maintaining corporealness there. There's just something in the frequency that kind of like a skunk smell kind of repels them.
Okay.
That's the way I put it. It's not negative. It's just literally like a scent that they can't take. So of those moons, you can, let's just say about 70,000 different types of skin suits exist there. And you can call that more like a coalition of moons that represents itself as a single planet. And they've all spent the last 3.5 million years geoengineering the gas giant to become a solid planet and encourage a high energy soul to stay in it. And that's what all of these relic species are all keeping their common focus to, and it's what keeps them knit together as a culture. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So in order for the planet to solidify, so to speak, it needs an actual soul to actually marry with it. and they're trying to attract that? Is that something?
Like have it be pregnant.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. More like encouraging it to stay pregnant and stuff like that. Or to birth itself into the world.
Yeah.
So they will oftentimes ask for various members of the inner core to come there and act as spiritual advisors, simply because the inner core sees the light differently, the density of expression differently, and they do rituals and magic on a different layer of density. So rules are really different out there. Physics don't apply the same way when you get out to that level.
Yeah.
So it's one example. To call them spiritual, they are, but they're more focus-driven to be able to do this and then do it again and again and again and again and sell planets. Yeah, move them and sell them and move them, quite literally. So there is a negative imprint that is there that very much needs to be fixed, because that is one of the mantles of responsibility that species took up, because the original founder beings could create planets and move them anywhere in the galaxy or universe. And they're trying to achieve that level of society. So that would be one. Now, another one in that same kind of ring, but a long, long distance away from the coalition of moons. It's got a lot of water on it, but that water doesn't really sustain the amount of life that it should, because of the amount of times water has been taken off of that world and then put back on the world dirty. So kind of think of it like a gray water planet, everyone's RV gray water.
Yes.
Now, that is considered an ecological nightmare, but beings that live there are going through that resolution of ecological nightmare karma. Now, it does have a womb chakra on it that will appear in its north or south pole or at some of its cardinal points. And you could have 3 to 4 billion beings living on it, and maybe 1 to 1.5% of them can access the womb chakra, advance the healing of the planet. So many of them come in with karma from other places where they destroyed planets or something to that effect, and as a way to work out that karma. It does have technology, at some levels very high technology, but it's still considered like the red-headed stepchild that kind of gets beat up all the time. Another one, it's more of a volcanic world where stone is, our world has, 10,000 active volcanoes, 12,000 active volcanoes, something like that. That world is roughly the same size of Earth, but it has maybe 30 or 40,000 volcanoes on it. And those volcanoes are constantly turning up new sources of stone that are coming to the surface, that the surface people will go and cut out sections of this freshly done lava, and they'll make very advanced camouflage systems with them, and then sell them to other organizations to install on worlds, so you can't scan through that, hunk of rock that was been shaped and formed. Many megalithic builders go there for a few dozen lifetimes to learn how to do that. As a culture and a species, it's been drastically reduced because there's not craftsmen that want to stay in those kinds of lives. So it's kind of more of a closed circuit. Nowhere near the amount of life incarnates there as it should. The reincarnation grid there is pretty well locked in place, but everybody still that's there wants to be, cutting up rock, searching for the best rock, going on deep underground, under earth, under the ground missions to find the source of the magma, to put technology in that magma so when it comes to the surface, it's cured the way they want it. There is a university on that world where other off-worlders will come and learn some of those concepts so that when they try to recreate a volcano on another world, it works, because there's a whole blueprint and technology of how to create a volcano so it actually like does the right geoengineering on the world you're creating. It does have small oceans that do support life, but the life regularly dies out because of the gases that can come to the surface. It can, carbonate the water really fast and everything dies off. So there is a mystery school that has specialized in rapid repopulation of the food sources there. And it's a negative mystery school. First thing first, it's where more advanced mafia beings from Pluto would go there to learn how to run their own world in a black market format. So if your population is going to revolt against you, you could wipe it out and rebuild the food source, and you'd be fine and time travel in what you wanted again. So they kind of learned to do that shit there.
Okay. How about, like, you've talked about a couple planets. Obviously, like, the sun is the link. What effect does the sun have that far out? Because, I mean, we perceive light and warmth from the sun. Have any effect that far out and further out?
Physics don't work the same way out there.
Okay.
So light does make it out there, and that is the synaptic pathways that connects the galactic ascension machine and all its, its 20 rings. Okay? Yeah. So the galactic energy becomes the new physics of light and how things can grow on the surface at that ring level.
Okay.
The more ring levels you go out, more galactic light supports the physics and the realities, you can't define them in third density anymore. Third density means it has to have the light from the sun still interacting in a specific way to change its surface beings.
Sure. Yeah. Cool.
And there are times that these planets are brought from the outer rings to the inner rings to change the surfaces somehow, or to recharge the planet. So,
yeah, it's just fascinating because it's like trying to give a visual sort of concept to that sort of structure without anything to define it by. So.
Right. So yeah, physics totally work different once you get beyond the Oort cloud. Just as physics work different as soon as you get off of the Earth.
Absolutely.
So when you come to the very...
It's funny because I'm like watching like shows like Stargate Atlantis and stuff, and they go to different worlds and they're talking about a year. Yeah. And it's like it's in the Pegasus galaxy, so it's got no...
Yeah.
They're all humans, right? But like, how would you even know you're defined by a year?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like picking at a sci-fi show, but it's fascinating because it's like right. you got to be aware of that sort of stuff when you leave Earth.
Right. So if you go out many more rings out, let's say the last ring out there, you run into what I call mega worlds, where you have planets that look like Earth that are the size of the sun. That's how big they are.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to actually ask you relative to 780 AD in Earth, was it the same size also? Because like the volume of life seemed pretty expensive. So I mean, a planet can change size. So
from 780 to 200 BC, you can see a 3% to 3.5% shrinkage of the whole planet.
Yeah. But that was a tangent. Like you're talking about these mega planets now.
Yeah. So these mega planets out there, they have their own suns inside them. And they have self-producing light technology in their atmosphere.
Interesting.
So they're self-illuminating, interior and externally.
Okay, like, because I've seen some artistic diagrams of planets, and they perceive a planet like a sun inside. So that's sort of like they're thinking it's here, but maybe they're tapping into a past life or something on these other planets. Could that be something?
No, that's kind of general in planetary construction. There's a sun inside our Earth too.
Okay.
And that's just a light being we call a sun, but it's just a being that's compressed itself into high energy.
Okay. Okay.
So those are fully constructed and created worlds, those mega worlds. They were never naturally formed, and they were created by the founder species. And many of them were like warehouse planets for large volumes of life. And when the founder beings went on their journey to the great stars and beyond and to seek out the celestial mysteries, they would bring these planets with them and then send them back to be restocked. And when they left completely, they sent all those planets back, and all the beings on them represented many of the other relic species that weren't in the inner core rings, because they had been elevated over many millions of years to live in the outer rings, to become free-roaming galactic citizens, so they could assist the founder beings on the searching for the celestial mysteries.
So, of all the 66 planets, how many are in this state? Out in the outer rings?
There are 21 planets between the center ring where Earth is, going out to ring 5, ring 6. And those still maintain some form of third density. That means the light from the center sun still has enough light connection for direct transference and not a need for technological assistance of the soul to get from the solar system's originating point. Those worlds have gates inside them that connect them directly to the sun, but they don't always function all the time because they're farther away, and their particular alignment to the sun will determine how much energy of direct solar incarnation gateways will get to them. So the rest of them don't have a third density format. So they're basically fourth density, no time planets that have micro bubbles of time implanted on them, so human beings from third density can temporarily live or long-term live inside these shelters of time shelters. I don't want to call them time-like fallout shelters because they're not. They're just places to go and live inside these worlds in a different bubble of reality. Yeah. That still is linked to the DNA black market for a variety of reasons. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there's 21 of the 66 that still have light contact with the sun to create a third density level on them.
Yeah, and the rest don't.
Yeah, okay. So that's 45 others.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and you could basically call those other 45 the warehouse worlds.
Yeah.
They do have their own perversion and incarnation and domination and control, but it's far less than what we have here. Far less.
You know, like you mentioned the founder beings, right? And I've found that show that I've suggested with you from the 19th of February with JP from 2013, where you actually talk about the 36 beings that set up the galactic ascension machine. And that was pre sort of like allowing the migration to this universe and setting up a lot of galaxies and planets for migration to begin. Are you talking about those founder beings?
In that show, what I was describing was most of the founder beings had already left, and there was a small group that decided to stay around and see if any of the relic species could step up to the mantle of responsibility and become their own founder beings. So they picked up the mantle of responsibility to try and move planets and solar systems. But they were not the ones that created the galactic ascension machine. There was a huge re-immigration of founder beings that came back to clear up their karma because they realized they could go no further until they did. So there was a mass re-emergence here to create the galactic ascension machine, and then they left. And when they left some knowledge to the relic species and the remaining founder beings that said, the galactic ascension machine is going to go on. Here's the rule book for it. Manage it. And when we come back, it up.
It's a bit like, I like, when you're talking about that sort of migration of sort of a generation, if you will, it's a bit like in The Lord of the Rings when the elves were wanting to leave the realm. They're going on that shit, and they were leaving it to the realm of men. They're leaving it to the age of men,
Very good way to put it.
That, to me, is like a metaphor for many of the let's say the race or the level of a being migrating and leaving the reality or whatever,
Yep. Good way to put it.
Yeah. Very interesting. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
As I said, we were talking for a while, and then you went into your radio voice. So you're obviously pretty tuned in and sharing some stuff. So
flexing the muscles.
Yeah, you're just like testing yourself in the waters, so to speak. But nah, I've got that recorded, mate, and we'll do something with it. And it is. What date is it? It's the 22nd of October 2016. So you're in the 21st.
Yep.
So thank you for that, and we'll be in touch.
Definitely. You need to get some sleep. It's got to be, 5 o'clock in your morning?
Mate, it is like 7:45 in the morning. We've been talking overall like 5.5 hours, and I was like, do I cut Andrew off giving this new information that's never been out, or do I go and get some rest? And it's like the ultimate tease. But no, mate, that was pretty cool.